Today's show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Stand up for your digital rights. Take action at expressvpn.com/Candace. Hello and welcome. Did you know that Bill Gates is spending $1.7 billion to fix the U.S. education system? That's so like him, right? Every time we hear about Bill or Melinda Gates, they just seem to be extending their tentacles into everywhere because they're philanthropists, right? They just want to help. These people just wake up every day and go, how can we help? It's all about helping. So he's decided to help with what he views to be problematic math. He says math suffers from, you guessed it, white supremacy. So he's put forth an equitable math curriculum. You're probably going, equitable, I keep hearing that word. What is equitable math? Everywhere we're talking about there needs to be more equity everywhere. Well, equitableMath.org, which is his organization, describes the problem as being a white supremacy culture that shows up in math classrooms when the focus is on getting the right answer. That's the problem. The problem is that it's a white supremacist idea to now get the right answer in classrooms. So they've decided they're going to fix that. They're trying to introduce all across the country, no need to get the right answer. Basically, they're going to make your kids stupid. And they're going to hide under the guise of white supremacy and make sure children, as long as they're trying their best, they'll get an A, right? Check. You were completely wrong, but we're going to give you a correct because that would be the equitable thing to do. And this infuriates me for a lot of reasons. It infuriates me because we are just seeing so much perversion inside of classrooms, so much perversion in general when it comes to children, especially in the education system. You might remember a few weeks ago, we talked about a woman named Justine Ang Fonte. She is a health and wellness educator. And here's what the health and wellness educator did. She led a class on masturbation for first graders at a Manhattan school. She showed the young students a video about children touching themselves. The film featured children cartoon characters having frank discussions about sexual activities and bodily functions, including, ready, erections and touching oneself for pleasure. Of course, the parents of this school were particularly outraged. Somebody leaked it to the press. People were upset. I'm sure they called the administration and said, this is not okay. But this isn't the first time she's done this, by the way. In Manhattan, she also taught a health and sexuality workshop to juniors at Columbia Grammar Preparatory School, in which they all learned about different genres of porn, which included gangbang, anal, and even stepmother porn, incestuous type porn. That is what happened to 16-year-olds when they went to school. Here's a workshop. Actually, we're going to talk to you about pornography. And again, the parents were outraged, so outraged it got leaked to the press and it caused a firestorm online. And you would think this woman would be fired, but no, they said that she's stepping down, but they're proud of the work that Justine has done. The school has spoken out on behalf of her. The parents were not even given a heads up regarding these lessons. They drop off their children and this is what's happening. And, the school apologized for not giving them a heads up. Does that seem okay to you? Doesn't seem okay to me. I travel the country a lot, as most of you know, and it seems to me that the number one question that I am now getting from parents is, what can we do? They're realizing that something is wrong, right? They're teaching critical race theory, which is really just teaching your children how to be racist. They're teaching equitable math, which is teaching your children how to be stupid, literally teaching children to be stupid. And now, of course, is the hyper-sexualization of our children. What can we do? Candace, what can we do? I'm going to tell you right now what you can do. I'm going to actually reverse it, and I'm going to ask you a question. And that question is, what would you do? What would you do if you took your child to the playground and they came across another adult, and that adult, let's say he's a male, showed your first grader a cartoon about masturbation? Would you call the administration? Would you call the people that own the playground and say, this is not acceptable? Is that all you would do? Does that seem okay to you? Somehow, the transferring the same exact thing happening within an institution or a school, parents don't know what to do. But if it was on the playground, they wouldn't know what to do. They would call the cops because that is a sexual offense. Children are now being sexually offended in the classroom. And parents don't understand that. They can't comprehend that it doesn't change the crime because it's happening from a teacher. In my opinion, Justine, she should have to register as a sexual offender. If that was my child, it would have gone to the police station, not to the administration. I want you to understand something. At this moment in the country, our children are under attack. They are being preyed upon by the educators. They are being preyed upon by people that have nefarious goals. This is a serious issue. And a reminder from me, you shouldn't be asking me what to do. You need to remind yourself that you are the parent. We are the parents. What would you do in any circumstance that your child is being victimized by other adults? I'm a big supporter now, of course, of homeschool. I think that the schools are a disaster. They cannot be trusted with our children. And I hear people say, well, I can't afford to do homeschooling. I have to work. I understand that predicament. It's an obvious predicament that many people are in. You have to work. So that's why you send your children to school. And you say, well, the school, at least it's free. It's not free. The public school system is not free. It is costing you your child's mind. It is propaganda. It is lies. It is making them dumber. And it is sexualizing them. It's a huge trade-off. For 6 hours a day, they have your children, and they are turning them into whatever it is they desire to turn them into. And the answer is not good people. That's no longer their goal anymore. It's not productive people. That's no longer their goal anymore. This is something that everybody should be having a serious discussion about. And let me tell you, regarding homeschool, if you think it's hard, you should know that our country was based upon that model. When the Pilgrims arrived at Plymouth Rock, the moms got together and they sorted things out on a community and a local level. One mom said, I'll take Mondays. Another mom said, I'll take Tuesdays, I'll take Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. They organized. We still have the power to do that. We still have the power to organize. The government is not the parent. We are. Welcome to Candace. I hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. I'm taking a brief break to remind you guys that the internet, which we all use and love, is not free. In fact, our data is constantly being sold without our permission. Using the internet without something like ExpressVPN is like taking a call on a train or bus on speaker for everyone to hear. You do not want to be that person. Internet service providers know every single website that you visit. ISPs can sell this information to ad companies and tech giants who then use your data to target you. ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so people can't peep on your online activity. All you have to do is fire up the app and click one button. It is so easy. It's also rated #1 by CNET, Wired, and The Verge. It works on phones, laptops, even routers, so everyone who shares your Wi-Fi will be protected. I am telling you right now, as we fight this war against big tech, there is not a better way to render them weaker than by protecting your online data. So secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/Candace today. That's expressvpn.com/Candace, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/Candace. So car stuff is always annoying. You figure out what part you need, you go to the store, and somebody asks you a bunch of questions only to tell you that, actually, we're going to have to order that part online. It's a bit ridiculous, right? Well, you can actually avoid all of that by visiting rockauto.com, which makes it so much easier than going into a store. Rockauto.com always offers the lowest prices possible rather than changing prices based on what the market will bear like airlines do. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? They are also a family business. They have served auto part customers online for over 20 years. So go to rockauto.com, the shop for auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. It makes the process so much easier. Their catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. You can quickly see all of the parts that are available for your vehicle, choose the brands, the specifications, and the prices that you prefer. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and you can write Candace in their How'd You Hear About Us box so that they know that it was me who sent you. All right, guys, I am honored to introduce you to my next guest. He is the founder and president of Operation Underground Railroad, an incredible organization that rescues children from sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. Please give a hand for Tim Ballard.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to just give my audience a little bit of a background. So I sat down with you a little over a year ago, and it was one of the most riveting conversations I ever had. I will say is the only time that I almost completely broke down on camera. And over really my own ignorance, I would say. So as I'm going to try to do this as slow as possible, because I know that we don't have as much time as we had then. I just first want you to start with your story, because I think that's an incredible place to start of what got you interested in this sex trafficking operations, starting these stings, trying to expose these people. Start us right there.
Sure. So I started my career as a special agent and undercover operator for the Department of Homeland Security, mostly on the border for 10 years, working sex trafficking cases. And about 12 years into that, recognized that there was these major gaps in so many of our neighboring countries that were also affecting our sex trade here in the United States. We're the #1 consumers of child sex material in the world, but so many of our neighboring countries didn't have the resources. And I started working some cases overseas for the US government where I got kind of in deeper than I should have probably in an undercover capacity, and decided that the only way I could stay to work these cases, because they weren't technically US cases, was to quit my job. It was really my wife who said, you got to quit if you can help these kids.
You're overseas and they're saying, you know that there's sex trafficking going on, and the US government is saying to you, sorry, not your turf, you can't do anything.
Exactly what happened. And I had all this intel, and we had seen the kids, and they'd made me the bait. We were hunting for American tourists, which would be US business. But if I didn't find the US tourist, we did find the children. And these are little kids, and sometimes as young as 7 years old up to 14, 15. And so I call home to my wife. I'm like, what do we do? You know, they're calling me back. She's like, you quit, and let's just do this. I got some help from Glenn Beck, who I called on a whim, and he got me money, and we started Operation Underground Railroad.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just want you to recap the story, because was that your first operation?
It was our first operation.
Talk about that.
So we learned about a trafficking organization that was taking children. So after the earthquake in 2010, there were about 500,000 orphans made overnight, wandering the streets. And this is when the traffickers come in, after a kind of a natural disaster like that. It's harvest time for the traffickers. They come in and they throw signs up over their walls, orphanage here, orphanage there, and innocent people are driving these children into what they think is a safe haven. In fact, it's traffickers. And so we got a lead on that, and there was children between 1 year old up to about 13, and the police asked us to go undercover, pretending to be buyers from the United States. And so we went in, and they said, just if they offer you kids, just buy one. And I walk into this place, and they're just selling kids like puppies, like animals. You know, they're $15,000 each, and this is where pedophiles come. This is where child pornographers come. It's where slave labor comes to get these children. And so I've got to pick a kid, and before I can even pick a child, this beautiful 2-year-old boy turns and walks to me as if he knew something. That's what I felt. I picked him up in my arms, and he ended up having an older sister who was about 3. And so I got them together and told them that, stay with me, I'm going to buy you, but not really. I actually revealed who I was to them because I felt it in the moment.
So you described the 3-year-old girl when she first saw you. You remember when you told me this? I want to talk about that, because I think that's so incredible.
So I'm holding the little boy in my arms, and I walk into these outbuildings because I'm looking for other kids. I have a camera undercover on my backpack. And as I'm walking in, the deeper I get into this building and the darker it gets, the quieter it gets. Only then can I hear what was always behind me, the footsteps of this other little girl, this 3-year-old, this beautiful child. And I turn around, and she's looking at me like pissed. Like just with like courageous, but like pissed off eyes, you know, like, what are you doing? And I look at her, and I give her a candy bar. Say, get out of here, you're gonna yell and blow my cover, you know? And I give her this candy bar, and she's supposed to take it outside and eat it like most kids would do in that circumstance. Instead, almost like muscle memory, this brave little girl breaks the candy bar in half and places the other half of it into the arms of the little boy in my arms. And it's like God just told me in that moment, this is her little brother. And how many Americans have come to this place, picked up a child, and that child's gone. And she's not gonna let that happen. So that's what prompted me I knelt down, I put the kid down, she grabs him and puts him behind her, and she's gonna block. I mean, just brave as can be. I'm like 10 times her size. And I kneel down and take her hands and tell her who I am. No one was around, luckily, and I said, I'm going to help you guys, and you'll never be apart again, these two kids. And so we ended up going back to the traffickers, and we ended up buying both of them in the sting operation, which gave police the evidence they needed to then raid the place and get the other 26 children out and into safety. And just really bonded with these kids, really just in awe of the courage of this little girl. And that night I'm talking to my wife on the phone, like telling her what happened. And my wife gets very emotional and says, I want to be their mother. If you can't find their mother, let me be their mother. And I said, are you crazy? We just quit our job. We have no money. This is really expensive. And that she persisted. And so I dutifully obeyed. And those kids are now home. They're our children.
It's just an amazing story. It really is. I'm still trying not to cry because it's just such a powerful story. And I really want to harp on that. And because what is curious to me is that you went in as Americans. And that didn't send any red flags like, oh, the Americans are the good guys. This is probably a sting operation. And so what you're saying is that they're used to seeing Americans, and that's an okay and acceptable person to see. And you particularly brought up, the pornography industry. And before speaking with you, I think I was probably agnostic, maybe libertarian, and some people watch porn, some people don't. Not really my business, no harm, no foul. And you really made me understand that there's a lot of foul. And despite we are the #1 consumers in America of the pornography that allows and keeps this human sex trafficking alive. You stated it so much more eloquently, so please do.
Yeah, with the United States, we're the #1 consumers of child rape videos, child exploitation material, which is why these governments around the world, in Haiti and other places, ask us to come in and be informants. We always work with governments. We're not a vigilante group, but they ask us because they say, you look like the clients the traffickers are trying to service. And we can get into the belly of the beast pretty quick because of just how we look, right? And it really does reflect the piece that the United States has in this problem. Because sometimes we say, this is far away from us. Well, it's happening right here, first of all. I mean, thousands of kids are being brought across the border into sex trafficking. And it's happening here. But more importantly, I think we are the demand. And so when you talk about creating safe zones for sexuality, like we talked about the legalizing sex work, which has been proposed in New York State and other places and in several countries in Europe. Well, what it does, because I'm libertarian too, but what that does to normalize that activity, these people who are going to pimp out the adult sex workers, they are protected under these rules too. And so now they're shaking hands with government officials. They're certified, they're licensed, they're paying taxes, and everything's great. Except they never show you the stable of 12 kids who are 10 years old who are in the back room or scattered across a dozen hotels in Amsterdam or in wherever, and now they're safe because no one's going to watch them anymore because they're good guys. They're businessmen. And now these kids are stuck in hell. And so that's why we can't normalize the sexuality of anything. We have to fight against that culture so that we can protect children.
Right. I think that those are such powerful words for people to understand. We are the demand. We are the demand. We're creating this problem. And I think, the libertarian perspective is live and let live as long as it's not harming anybody. And in this circumstance, what you're saying is it really does harm people. And those people that it's harming, especially, are children.
Yes.
So I want you to make it known to everybody how big the sex trafficking problem is. How many people, give me some numbers in America of how many people are being sex trafficked, how many people are even missing in America, children that are missing, which is a bizarre, jarring number.
Yeah, so first of all, if you just talk about slavery, modern day slavery, more people enslaved today than ever before in the history of the world. It estimates about 40 million people. That's slave labor, sex slavery, and organ harvesting, which is something we're also investigating, working in the Middle East, Africa, and other places. And
organ harvesting.
Organ harvesting. They're taking children. So I'm the CEO of the Nazarene Fund, which was founded by Glenn Beck, and I run both OUR and the Nazarene Fund. And these kids, ISIS has come in and taken Yazidi children, some Christian children, and they have them still to this day, and they make their money literally by cutting their hearts out.
And what are they doing
organs.
with these
And
organs?
they sell them. They sell them on the black market. Like a pediatric heart can go for about $250,000.
What is somebody doing with a pediatric heart on the black market?
So there's certain families, mostly on that side of the world, the Gulf states, Eastern Bloc, where they don't want to wait in line to get a heart for their child who's suffering some disease, some heart disease. And so they'll buy it from an ISIS dealer, believe it or not, and skip the line, and this child's being killed over here to help this other child over there.
That's absolutely sick. Absolutely sick. And in terms of the numbers of how many people are being trafficked into America?
Right. So then you get down to the children in the world. It's about 2 million are children who are specifically forced into sex slavery. 10 million if you include the labor. But in my experience, the labor slave kids become sex slaves as well, because once you own someone, you own someone and do what you want to do with them. So these are the numbers. The United States, it's about 200,000 children. Between 150 and 200 are the best guesses we have that are stuck in the United States. But we have thousands literally coming across the border every day, thanks to our own policies that are actually facilitating and making millionaires out of traffickers who control that border. And they're trying to get the kids into the market. This is the number one market for child sex. And so that number is just increasing every day. This is a $150 billion a year business. It's generally considered the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. You can sell a bag of cocaine once. You can sell a child 20 times within a 24-hour period. This is big business.
Yeah, so when you look back and you remember all of the nonsense when people were saying the children are being separated once they get in here, the children are being separated, and the Trump administration came back and said they're being separated because we need to know if these are even their parents.
That's right.
What you're saying is that is a legitimate concern.
So legitimate. It is so scary what's happening at the border right now. Because what happens is the policy right now states that if you are an adult and you have a child in your custody and you come across the border, in 72 hours, you must be released into the United States with a notice to appear in an immigration court in like 2 years. We call it an order to disappear because they never show up. And who are these kids? So these kids are being taken from Central America. And I know, I've talked to these people. We've been on the border working this. And so someone pays a couple $1,000s to a trafficker or to a smuggler, okay, and says, get me across the border. When they get to the border, they're given a child. Take this child, say it's your kid, and then you'll get right in. Or, this is even worse, what's happening right now is they're taking children alone and sending them over the border. In the last 2 months, okay, in the last 2 reporting months, so April and May, there were 4,700 children between the age of 6 and 12 that came unaccompanied. 700 children, last 2 months, 700 children between the age of 0 and 5, unaccompanied.
I saw the images of them dropping children.
So what's happening is the traffickers are saying, I gotta get these kids inside. So all I gotta do is, the immigration officials, unwittingly, they're great people, they're just doing what they have to do. They're actually trafficking the kids unwittingly, because you just send them across the border, across the river, the officer has to pick them up, bring them in, and then anyone can show up and claim to be family. I was talking to a high-level DOJ official just yesterday, and they said, Tim, this is the bottom line. It is harder to adopt a puppy out of a pound than it is to get one of these children out of detention. Oh, because you just show up with fake docs saying you're their family, and they're released. Mm-hmm. And these traffickers are making $14 million, according to the New York Post, $14 million a day, bringing children into our borders. And it's our own policies that are facilitating it.
I'm going to ask you something, and it's purely speculative, and you can say, I don't know, don't want to answer, but do you think that our government is ignorant of that? So when you see that right now, Kamala's the border czar, do you think that they are ignorant of the fact that their policies are allowing child sex trafficking to take off and with these numbers in regards? Or do you think that they're totally aware of what's happening?
They're totally aware, and I know that because I have testified before Congress on more than one occasion telling them this. I also briefed the President, Trump, in the White House about this as well. Lost 1,000 donors the next day because I dared to meet with the president about how to save kids at the southern border.
Wow.
And they absolutely know, because I've been there. I personally have told them, this is what's happening. And it's not hard to see what's happening. Why are there 26,000 children right now that just in the last 2 months that are sitting in the care of the U.S. government unaccompanied, 0 to 5 years old? I mean, up to 16. It's insanity.
So you recently, I want to unpack some of your recent work. You just had a sting in Venezuela.
Yes.
Talk about that.
This is a very important case. We're just now, it's several months ago, but we can just now talk about it. Women are 4 times more likely to be trafficked than children. So imagine this, there's these 10 women in Venezuela, and the economy completely collapses. I know you don't know much about this, but socialism doesn't work, as it turns out.
Wow.
It's a revelation to you. But Venezuela and other socialist countries that collapse, one of the horrific byproducts is sex trafficking. So these 10 women, they have 15 children amongst them. They don't know each other, but they're desperate. And they have no food to feed their families. And then this nice-looking woman from Latin America, I won't name the country because we're still working the case, shows up and says, come work for me. I have all these beautiful hotels. Be a waitress, a hostess, feed your family, come for 6 months. You'll send money back to your kids. It's a few-hour flight from your home. So they jump on the plane. Their ship came in. It's a miracle. They get down to this resort town, and their passports are taken to process, and they wake up. After having been given Ambien or other drugs, they wake up without their passports in another country where they don't speak the language, and they wake up naked. And they're woken up to being raped by these traffickers and forced to do sex acts on each other. And they said, this is your new life. They literally had a jail cell behind, we have footage of all this, it's being made into a documentary right now. A jail cell behind the brothel, the club, and they were forced to just be sex slaves. They have no passport, they don't speak the language, and the local police are in on it. So they are stuck completely. Our team found out about the case. We went in undercover. We found a couple of law enforcement officers who weren't corrupt in that moment. And they ended up turning on our guys, on our operators in the middle of the operation because the traffickers are paying them off and we won't pay them. And so we end up getting the girls out in this crazy chase where the cops are now chasing us and the girls along with the traffickers. Wow. And so we're jumping from safe house to safe house. We were able to get them out of the country and over the border. And now what do we do with them? They can't go back to Venezuela. So at the time I was very close with the previous administration. I made a call to the White House. And this was in September of last year. I said, I need visas. I've never heard this done before. I've asked before. No one's ever said yes. I need 10 visas. No connection to the United States. I just need them to get these girls out. And it was immediate. The White House said, absolutely. The only thing we ask is that let them come to the White House so we can officially welcome them to our country. They didn't bring any cameras. They didn't make this in an election year, said nothing about it when they could have, and didn't. And they brought these kids across. Tony Robbins jumped in, sent his private plane down, and flew these women home. Wow. And they're now healing throughout the United States in different places. Some of them just graduated from university. We're getting their kids reunited to them now. Wow. But what happened was because of the corruption, we couldn't take down the brothel. It's now filled again with Venezuelan girls. And this is the cycle where it's just, we've got to get louder, we've got to do more.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are watching this at home are probably wondering how high up this issue goes because, there's just been a lot of, and some people will say these are conspiracy theories, it's speculation, it's just conjecture, of people that believe that there's a lot of aiding and abetting by the United States government. And, I had a particularly riveting discussion with an illegal alien who's now legal because she got married, 26 years later, who just kind of described, coming into this country and how difficult it was to get in. But as soon as she arrived on the soil and got in, then the operation was very smooth and Americans were helping to transport, a bunch of illegals into different states. And it really kind of begs the question is how much do they know? Why aren't we hearing this discussion? Why was I so shocked to hear it from you a year and a half ago? Why haven't I heard this from the United States government a long time ago so we could all keep our eyes and ears open? And speaking of keeping eyes and ears open, what are your general tips? Because this is happening sometimes right under our noses. Yeah. What are your general tips?
So for parents who are the front line of this and guardians, grandmas and grandpas, most of the trafficking and child exploitation that happens in the United States, it begins online. If I'm overseas in a developing country, it's more open. It's on the beaches, on the street corners. Here, it's very alive and well, but it starts generally online. And so parents need to understand what their kids are doing, especially when there was the COVID shutdowns and all the schools and after-school programs were locked down. It was harvest time for the pedophiles. And they said it. We got the chats in the dark net where they're talking about it because kids are stuck on their computers, mom and dad scrambling to figure out how to feed them and find toilet paper or whatever was going on. And these kids are left alone. And the parents have no idea that they think they're playing the kids are playing a computer game against the computer. Like when I was a kid, that's how it worked, right? But that's not how it works today, right? They're playing Fortnite in these games against who they think is someone down the street or across the city who's also their age. No, they're pedophiles, right? There was a case just 40 miles from my house not long ago where a 40-year-old man was playing games online with two 6-year-old girls from Indiana. And he got them to take their clothes off and take pictures of themselves naked and send to him. Luckily, they caught him before he got physically, contact on him. But this is what's happening is, do you know what your kids are doing online? Do you know the apps? Have you turned off the function on the game that allows them to play with anyone out there? So that's the first line of defense. Parents aren't paying attention to what their kids are looking at on their phones and on their computers.
And I'm going to ask you this question to wrap, because we've been talking a lot about now it almost feels as if the education system is beginning to hypersexualize children. There's all of this talk about, even when they're talking about, gender and what children should be allowed to mutilate their bodies and, children picking their, different genders. And in school, we talked about earlier how pornography, they're saying this is sex education to teach children about anal sex, young age. First graders are learning about masturbation via a cartoon. What is your take on that?
My take on that is that pedophiles are cheering for these new cultural propositions. Why? Because you desensitize children to all things sex, and you're just opening the door to the pedophiles to come in that way. That's what pedophiles do, right? When they get a child, they start to desensitize that child. They show that child pornography, and then after that goes a while, they show that child exploitation material, child form. And that's how they break them down. And now it's just like, oh, society's going to do it for us.
Yeah, but do you think the society is almost pedophilic? Like when I think of telling a first grader about masturbation, I think that person teaching the masturbation is pedophilic. Why are you priming my child to even think about sex?
It scares me, like you said earlier in the show. That is a criminal offense. If you go online, because I've been a child online for years and years and years undercover, and I know the laws. You cannot solicit a child and talk sex to a child, show images of sexuality to a child. It's a felony. And now what you said is actually absolutely true. If educators are doing that, that's the exact same crime, but now it's okay because it's a teacher doing it. And it seems very perverted too. Can you imagine wanting to teach that to a child? What's wrong with you? I would really look at that person who's trying to teach a child to masturbate in first grade.
Yeah, I mean,
sick.
It is absolutely sick, and I think this has just been such a riveting discussion. Guys, please just give a round of applause for Tim Ballard and the amazing work that he is doing.
Thank you.
And for those of you that are watching at home, I want to remind you, it is a sexual offense. It doesn't matter if it's happening in a classroom. We have laws to protect your children against that sort of thing. So please do what you can. Learn more about this amazing organization. For more information on Operation Underground Railroad, head to the website on your screen. And do not go away, because I will be answering your questions next. Thanks. I hope you are enjoying the show. Just a brief break to remind you guys that in April alone, under Joe Biden's administration, consumer prices rose by 4.2%. That is the highest bump since 2008. Higher fuel prices, higher food prices, construction costs, housing prices. Inflation is not just coming, as so many people have said. It is actually here. Trust me, I talked to my husband the other day about wanting to redo some of the floors, and it turns out that unless you're a billionaire, you cannot get wood right now. Have you protected your savings, your investments? If you have not yet diversified a portion into precious metals, the answer is no, you have not. Birch Gold Group is who you can trust to convert an IRA or an eligible 401k into an IRA backed by gold and silver. Through a little-known tax loophole, you can convert your retirement savings that is tied to the stock market into an IRA backed by precious metals. It's your hedge against inflation. So text Candace, C-A-N-D-A-C-E, to 484848 for your free info kit on precious metals IRAs, or to speak with a Birch Gold representative today. With 10,000 customers, an A-plus rating with the BBB, and countless 5-star reviews, Birch Gold Group can help you too. Text Candace to 484848 and invest in gold before it's too late. Okay, guys, I have to say I am very big into my slipper game. So Mike Lindell of MyPillow sent me a pair of slippers, and I have to tell you, they were phenomenal. As you know, MyPillow has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. MyPillow didn't stop by simply creating just the best pillow. It also created the new Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is so crucial for having such a busy schedule. MyPillow found the world's best cotton, which is called Giza cotton. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable as well. MyPillow sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The first night that you sleep on Giza sheets, you will never want to sleep on anything else. Giza Dream sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. MyPillow is making a special offer for my listeners. You will receive 2-for-1 low price plus free shipping. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code DailyWire. There, you'll find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow mattress topper, MyPillow towel sheets, and so much more. Call 1-800-951-7163, and don't forget to use promo code DailyWire. Go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code DailyWire. All right, guys, you know what time it is, the time in the show where I get to answer your questions and interact with you, the fans of the show at home. Each week via social media, I answer your questions. Also from our live studio audience, they are also throwing in some questions, and I look forward to giving you the answers. We have 4. Let's do it. Why do so many people think Hispanics can't be Republicans? I am very proud to be one. That's because a lot of people, for whatever reason, actually I know exactly the reason, they're conditioned to believe that there is something proprietary about having darker skin and being a part of the Democrat Party. They just believe that the Democrats own everybody who is a minority because they harp the hardest on, they pretend, they stump on the minority issues. We're going to help. We're going to conquer racism. We're going to conquer white supremacy, so vote for us. And because this really starts in the school system, obviously I understand this more than anybody because I was trained up to believe that I had to be on the left. And so at the same time that I was being conditioned to believe that I had to be on the left, and I was conditioned to believe that I had to be a Democrat, so was everybody else. They were conditioned to believe that I had to be a Democrat. And so this issue really starts as soon as you enroll into kindergarten and until the education system gets sorted out, until we start demanding something that's different, something that's more truthful about the real history of a Democratic Party, you're not going to see much of a change. But it is bizarre, I think especially now, because so many Hispanic people in the last election voted for the Republican Party. I think that the left is sort of shocked by that. So hopefully that means that they'll do some digging and really understand that it's not an issue of skin color, it's an issue of values, and most people have conservative/Republican values and principles. Next question. How many children will you have? As many as God blesses me with. I hope I can have 10. I started negotiations with my husband high. I'm very good at the Overton window. So I said to him, it was always my dream to have 10. He was like, what? And so now we've landed on 5. He's like, okay, 5. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's acceptable. But my dream was 10. So ladies, that's how you do it. Start high. It's what the left does to us, right? Start high, and then they'll meet you at least halfway. So whatever is the amount you want, double it. And then he'll think he won when he halves it. That's my advice. Next question. Advice for conservative teachers in public school. Speak up. I think too many people are being quiet. The problem with the silent majority is that they're silent. And I understand that it can feel like such an existential threat to a teacher to speak up because you're afraid you're going to lose your job. But teachers are much more protected than you think. It would be unacceptable for a school to fire you for telling the truth. People would not allow it. They're not going to say, okay, you need to leave. And I think that if the revolution, it shouldn't be a revolution, but if it started from the teachers started saying, I refuse to teach this material and created some real issues from the inside out, they would help. They would be able to lock arms with a lot of these parents who are feeling the exact same way. I do think we are at the forefront and on the brink of an educational revolution. I believe that. I think for the first time, people are seeing the public school system for what it is. And if you are a conservative teacher, speak up, leak stuff to the press where and when you can, and go in and speak to the administration and just simply say, I'm not going to abuse children, because that's what it's coming down to. They're asking teachers to actively abuse children, to teach them lies and to teach them deceptions. And that is completely unacceptable. You became a teacher because you want to help children. So when the task is for you to hurt children, you should always reject that task. Last question. We just got engaged and are planning a wedding quickly. How soon did you and George get married after getting engaged, and what was the planning process like? Okay, so George and I, my husband, we met and then we got engaged 2 weeks later after first laying eyes on each other. So I don't think anybody will ever beat our record. I mean, unless they are just their parents picked the wedding and that's it. But a very unusual story. It truly was a love at first sight story. And we got engaged 9 months later. So it happened very quickly. In terms of planning the wedding, it was so fun. I mean, I was a very relaxed bride. I mean, the world is crazy every single day. So the idea that I was going to be stressed out about napkin colors it wasn't going to be me. So I definitely wasn't the bridezilla. And I think the best advice that I would give people, because I've been in weddings where the wife truly loses their mind. I don't know what they think this day truly amounts to, other than being in love with somebody and making a decision before God to spend the rest of your life with them, pledge and a vow before God to spend the rest of your life with them and supporting them. And if you remember that and remain tethered to that, and remember that people that are there to celebrate you, I think you always have a special day. So everything went perfectly at our wedding because we were relaxed, and there was no way for it not to go perfectly unless I didn't end up with my husband and he didn't end up with me. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. I honestly am so sad that I can only marry him one time. I want to marry him twice, 3, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Many kids, 10. Start with 10. Keep sending me questions. I love answering them. And thank you guys for joining me today. As always, we hope that we have given you something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Candace. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. To watch or listen to the full show, become a member at dailywire.com/subscribe. I hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. I'm taking a brief break to remind you guys that the internet, which we all use and love, is not free. In fact, our data is constantly being sold without our permission. Using the internet without something like ExpressVPN is like taking a call on a train or bus on speaker for everyone to hear. You do not want to be that person. Internet service providers know every single website that you visit. ISPs can sell this information to ad companies and tech giants who then use your data to target you. ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so people can't peep on your online activity. All you have to do is fire up the app and click one button. It is so easy. It's also rated number 1 by CNET, Wired, and The Verge. It works on phones, laptops, even routers, so everyone who shares your Wi-Fi will be protected. I am telling you right now, as we fight this war against big tech, there is not a better way to render them weaker than by protecting your online data. So secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/Candace today. That's expressvpn.com/Candace, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/Candace. Candace. 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 Candace.